exclusively on ESPN Plus. UFC 313, Saturday. Reigning light heavyweight champion Alex Pereira defends his title against number one contender Magomed Ankalaev, and an explosive lightweight bout between Justin Gaethje and Rafael Pazzi. UFC 313, Saturday at 10 p.m. Eastern. Buy it on ESPNplus.com/PPV.
Like a lot of great art, the following program contains nudity, so viewer discretion is advised.
Spanning the globe to bring you the latest in classic rock news and comment. It's the Classic Guitar Rock Daily Update with your host, Jeremy Lunnan.
Hello, guys. It is, what is it? It's the 17th of July, 2024. Let's do an update. You can chime in if you're on X or YouTube or Facebook. We'd love to hear from you. We usually put your comments right up on the screen for all to see. As you know, our policy here is we don't do politics, but we do have a music story with a backdrop of politics, but we're not going to get into the partisan, election politics, that sort of thing at all. However, Tenacious D, we got to talk about Tenacious D because there have been further developments since last update when we mentioned, people say stupid things, right? They say stupid things. I have said things, and as soon as I've said it, I've thought, man, why did I say that? And oftentimes we might not even mean it. We just say it. Right. And to be honest, I'm trying to extend a little grace to Kyle Gass, who, by the way, I only mean this in the kindest way possible, but talk about a gravy train. I mean, the dude's hitched his wagon to Jack Black for the last 20 years. I don't know if he's ever done anything else or if he was in Elf. Right? He's one of the guys in Elf. He's not a good actor. Anyways, where am I going with this? Well, things have gotten bad for Kyle. Now, if you haven't seen the footage, obviously he made a joke right after the assassination attempt on former president and current presidential candidate Donald Trump. He said, "Don't miss Trump next time," or "Next time, don't miss Trump." That was his birthday wish when Jack asked him to make a wish. And of course, Jack laughed along. Half the crowd laughed along. Few people were shocked. Well, here's what's happened. So yesterday, Jack Black posts a kind of a cryptic little message that says, "Hey, all of our future tour is canceled." I'm paraphrasing here. He says, "I've got to rethink what my future creative projects will be." Translation is, I got to get rid of this dead weight called Kyle Gass. And Jack says, basically, he says, "I was blindsided on stage when Kyle said that." So he kind of tossing Kyle under the bus. Well, then it gets even worse. Kyle, of course, posts an apology and says, "Hey, I would never wish harm on anyone, blah, 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 blah." The normal thing, the apologies that you normally expect to see from people. And you know what? I'm one that is willing to forgive and forget. If someone expresses an apology, that's okay for me, right? Yeah, you did something stupid. It was dumb. However, we're free to say whatever we want, but that doesn't mean we're free from the consequences, right? So immediately, a senator in Australia wanted them to be deported. So that was a big brouhaha about that. Word comes out yesterday that Kyle has been dropped by his management company, right? So here's a marginally talented guy who's just kind of hitching along with Jack Black for the last 20 years. Now he's been dropped. So it's probably the end of Kyle Gass's career. Did he have a career? Whatever he had, it's probably the end of it. Just the reality of it. So Pick of Destiny, I thought was hilarious. A lot of the stuff they've done, not recently. I mean, I don't think they've done anything funny recently, but 10 years ago, I thought Tenacious D was awesome. Tribute, I love that. was great. So again, people doing dumb things, right? And I've done dumb things. It's not about doing dumb things. It's just, on the one hand, and again, it lines up politically. You look at the comments, people that are Trump supporters, they're gleeful about what's happening to Tenacious D, specifically Kyle. People who aren't Trump, who are anti-Trump supporters, I think they feel bad for what's happening, whatever. It's a mess. The key here is don't do dumb stuff. Okay. And I'm pointing to myself when I say it, but this is a cautionary tale for those of us that have a tendency to say stupid things. Don't do it. Rod Argent, he had a stroke. Rod Argent, of course, was Zombies singer and keyboard player, and solo group Argent, right? Hold Your Head Up, right? Great keyboard player. I love the Zombies, by the way. They're one of my favorite 60s bands. If you go back, they had some great tunes. Well, he recently had a stroke and announced that he will be retiring from touring. But his management company issued a statement last week announcing the stroke, noting that, quote, he would need several months of rest and recuperation. Rod has asked us to convey that he has made the very difficult decision to immediately retire from touring in order to protect his health. He was already preparing to wind down his live performance schedule after health scares on recent tours. So, guys, again, this is a common thread, right? Most musicians will tell you, hey, we'll play the shows. We play the shows for free, right? What we're getting paid for is to tour. It's the rigors of touring, the constant travel in and out of hotels, up and on and off of buses, all of that over and over and over. And the older you get, the tougher it is. That's why they always say, hey, we're not getting paid to perform. We're getting paid to tour. And there's a difference, right? That 2 hours that they're on stage, they love that. That's a release. It's all the other stuff that's the hard work. And the older you get, obviously, the more difficult it becomes. But the good news is, despite the health setback, Argent won't be abandoning music altogether. He says, quote, I am absolutely overwhelmed by the outpouring of love and support that has happened in response to the news of me having suffered a stroke 3 weeks ago. I have read every post and have to thank you so much. I do feel so lucky that physically I've escaped the worst possible effects. And while I'm still frustrated by not finding all my words easily, I feel really hopeful that eventually I will make a full recovery. He continued, it is with a heavy heart that I can carry on. Or it is with a heavy heart that I can't carry on with the live playing that I love so much, but want to emphasize that after a couple of months, and I do mean to carry on in the studio with writing and recording unabated, and with superb contributions from Colin, Steve, Tom, and Soren. Thank you once again so much, Rod Argent. So that's good news. And let me get on my stroke high horse, by the way. A year ago, I play in a dad band. We had a gig, a little outdoor gig we were playing at a restaurant. And before this gig, I had this really weird sensation that I felt like I was like numb and tingly on half of my body. And it lasted about a minute, and then it stopped. I'm like, that was weird. I didn't think anything of it. Leave, go to the gig, played the gig. After the gig, same feeling again. And I sat on the edge of the stage. Our drummer, who's a dentist, he's not a medical doctor, but he's a dentist. So he's got, dentists have to go to medical school and they get some medical training. But I told him, I said, I feel numb on half of my body. It's just weird. And he gets his phone on right away and he says, I'm calling 911. I'm like, really? He said, yeah. He said, you might be having a stroke. So the ambulance, that was an exciting gig. It wound up with an ambulance arriving at the end of the gig. So the ambulance comes, I get on, they take me to the hospital. I'm there all night. They admit me, they run a bunch of tests. I didn't have a stroke. Still not sure what it was. But my friend Brad, the drummer, he had said that he had a similar experience a few months earlier and called. Again, he didn't have a stroke. What's my point? Because here's what the problem is. We get embarrassed, right? I don't want to have an ambulance come. I don't want their drama, especially if there's nothing wrong, then people will laugh at you, whatever. Don't worry about any of that. Okay. And that's exactly what the EMTs said. They said, it is so much better for you to call and have it looked at than to just assume everything's okay. Because strokes are, they can do, you can die. They can do a lot of damage, but the sooner you get to a doctor, the better. Don't mess around with stroke. If you experience any of those symptoms related to stroke, don't wait. Call 911 or go to the emergency room right away. So just going to throw that out there. Sammy Hagar explained why he was convinced that Joe Satriani was the right guitarist to represent Eddie Van Halen on this current Van Halen tribute tour that they're doing, the Best of All Worlds. Sammy says, quote, 1 million guys could have done it. Well, not 1 million, but you walk into a music store and you see a 12-year-old kid sitting on an amp with one of Eddie's guitars and he's playing Eruption. These genius little kids can do it now, but he doesn't necessarily know what he's doing. You ask him to write a song like that and he's going, I don't know how. You say, Joe, write me a song like that. Joe will write you a song like that because he knows where it's coming from. Sammy said that his experience with Joe in Chickenfoot gave him confidence in Satriani's abilities. He says, Joe's the professor. He's a scholar. Every time I've worked with Joe, I know he knows what he's playing. Joe can play a shredding solo just on fire. And then he stops and he's like, hold it. I effed up. I'm going, where did you F up? How did you even hear it? You're playing so fast. Oh, that one note right there. And it's like, holy crap. He knows exactly what he's playing. The thing about someone like Satriani, like a Steve Vai, they are such, they're great players, obviously, but they're also, they're musicians. Okay, there's a difference between just being a guitarist and being a musician. I don't know that I can explain what I mean by that. But there's guys that are at a certain level. Guitar happens to be the instrument they play, but they are just world-class musicians. They understand the layers, the levels, everything going on. And I think Joe is one of those people that he can technically play what needs to be played, but he has a deeper understanding and it's hard to explain, but there's only a handful of guys that fall into that category, I think. And that's not to minimize the contributions of great guitar players, but there's some guys that their talent is so immense that it transcends the instrument that they're an expert at, if that makes sense. In fact, I'm going to talk about another one here in just a minute. But Sammy recognizes that in Joe. All the reports I've seen of this Best of All Worlds tours, it has just been great. It's been awesome. So if you get a chance to see it, you absolutely should. Carl checking in from Germany. Hi there, my favorite guitar rock host. Hey, yeah, thank you. I need 5 number rocking numbers between 1 and 50 and 2 more rolling numbers between 1 and 12. Is your rock and roll wisdom going to help? So you need some numbers? I'll give you some in just a sec. Okay. Thanks, Carl, for checking in. Speaking of guitarists who are musicians, the great Steve Howe of Yes and Asia fame. Steve is he's an interesting character. obviously mega talented. I'm getting tons of emails right now. I probably made someone mad, but I'm getting lots of emails. He's releasing a new album. It's going to be called Guitarscape. It comes out September 27th on his own label, the How Sound label. You'll be able to get it on CD, vinyl, and as a digital copy. Guitarscape marks a new chapter for the Yes in Asia legend as he presents what amounts to a guitar masterclass. He says, "What I'm doing is focusing on what I do well and what I love to do." The album features 14 instrumental tracks in a host of musical styles, from rock through to acoustic and classical, each bearing that unmistakable Steve Howe sound. Steve plays acoustic, electric, steel, and bass guitars, along with keyboards, and is joined by his son Dylan on drums. He says, quote, "This album has given me the opportunity to do something different," says Steve. I bought a Novatron Summit keyboard, and I found that it had a wealth of inspiring sounds. It gave me a golden opportunity to create my own keyboard structures, chordal movements, and structures that I thought were a bit different. I think differently on a keyboard. I don't see the chords looking the same, but then I had fun playing around with the guitar to see where that goes. I've utilized most of the colors as I like to think of my styles, and I'm always pleased when I hear them running through and it moves from a steel maybe to a Spanish guitar, because it's a different sort of album. I'm not using terribly conventional chord sequences, but things that give me a fresh feeling and opportunistic and opportunities to improvise and stretch out, as well as be melodic and make this a nice tuneful experience. He says, "I began feeding the tracks to Dylan, his son and drummer. We get on great, and he seems to know what to play around my guitar. It's almost instinctive. Dylan and I fit together really beautifully. We've had the chance to do this together, so it's wonderful." So that's awesome. I'm looking forward to that. Time Traveler checking in. Hi, Time Traveler. I had a stroke in 2010, October, and still have a noticeable limp from the effects on my left side. I can make some chords, but I haven't sold my guitars. Okay, well, don't sell them. Keep working on it. But again, the point I made earlier, call the doctor, go to the doctor as soon as you have any signs of that. And of course, my friend Will, let me just have a personal conversation with Will on here. Will, I got a voicemail from you. I need to call you back. I haven't called you back. I will be calling you back. I'm trying to prime Will. I'm going to be in his neck of the woods here in about a month, less than a month. And I'm trying to work him for a free lunch or dinner. That's what I'm really trying to angle for. So I'll be in touch, Will. Of course, we don't let Will say anything on the, because he has incriminating evidence. He's known me so long. So he's not allowed to say anything when he chimes in, but we're always happy for him to chime in. And he's saying Whataburger. Okay. He's already, now you might think that's a joke, Will. You might think that you're joking with me when you say that. I'm actually looking forward to going to Whataburger because we don't have Whataburger where I live. And those of you that don't have Whataburger's really good. And those of you that do have Whataburger, you probably take it for granted. So I'm fine with Whataburger. So, all right. I'm hoping I can use your swimming pool too while I'm there. That's part of the ulterior motive that I have. So Will, thank you. Thank you for chiming in. All right, guys, that's all I've got today. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your support. If you're listening to the radio station, thank you so much. I appreciate it. We're slowly but surely having more folks listen. Thank you for listening to the podcast. And thank you for all that you do. We'll do it all again tomorrow. Live long and prosper. We'll see you. Bye-bye.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I've ever heard.
Thanks for listening. You can email Jeremy at classicguitarrock@mail.com.
Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
Tune in each weekday for the Classic Guitar Rock Daily Update.